Nissan has a long history of game-changing cars. The GTR was a supercar killer. The Nissan Leaf basically reinvented the EV market as we know it, and the Nissan Qashqai is essentially the father of all crossovers. And they're aiming to make yet another big splash with this, the new Nissan Ariya. It's the most advanced car they've ever made. It's an electric crossover that will go head-to-head with the Tesla Model Y, the Mustang Mach-E, and a host of other compact electric SUVs. But in a crowded market, does it have what it takes to grab your attention? Looks-wise, I think they've nailed it. Clearly, their design department have learned an awful lot since the Leaf came out, and I can see this thing selling by the bucket load. Here's the elevator pitch. The top model will have a 90 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which is enough for a range of 310 miles. The fastest model will have 2 electric motors, one at the back and one at the front, and that's going to be good for around 400 horsepower, and that can take the car from 0 to 62 in 5.1 seconds. And that, incidentally, is quicker than any other Nissan product outside of the GTR. It's quicker than a Z. Now you have my attention. Obviously, it doesn't look like a sports car, but it is still quite appealing. Nissan's design brief for this car was timeless Japanese futurism, with 3 key words defining their approach: sleek, sexy, and seamless. I love the front. This is probably the best bit of the car for me. It looks quite futuristic, doesn't it? But this isn't actually a concept. This is the finished car. And in fact, this new front end design is going to be rolled out onto a lot of Nissan's other vehicles, including on the Qashqai. A few highlights that are specific to the Ariya. Instead of a grille, you have what's called a shield here, and behind this is where you find all the gubbins, all the sensors for the car's self-driving equipment. And if you look closely, you'll notice this Japanese-inspired pattern, quite attractive. And up here is where you'll find the new Nissan logo, larger than I expected it would be, and it's also illuminated by 20 LEDs. Sadly, it doesn't stay lit up while you're driving, but it does light up when you approach the car, lock it, or unlock it. Other highlights? Big fan of these boomerang style LED day running lights and these super thin headlamps, and round the back, that super thin LED, just give it this lovely contemporary feel. Good stuff. This being a family car, the Ariya should be pretty spacious. It's 4.6 meters long, somewhere between a Qashqai and an X-Trail, although it hides its size quite well with some sporty proportions. There's a coupe/crossover style roofline that swoops down at the back, a high gloss black sill, and wheel arches that make it look less bulky than it actually is, along with some quite nice 19-inch aero wheels that are pushed out as far as possible, giving it a long wheelbase. And that decision to stretch the wheelbase has really paid off, because look at the amount of room in this car. The front seat's adjusted for me, and yet I've still got so much legroom. It's like an S-Class. There's also enormous amounts of headroom as well. There is no panoramic glass roof in this particular car, although I believe it will come as an option, and yet I still have quite a bit of headroom. I could put a second head on top of my head. That's how much headroom is inside this car. I also like the fact that the floor is completely flat. There's no transmission tunnel in the Ariya, and that makes it really easy to move across the cabin, or to sit on the center seat, or to install or remove child seats from the back of the car. You also get a little fold down panel in the center seat, which has a couple of cup holders. The cubbies in the doors are unusually small, which is a slight drawback. However, you do get heated seats in the back and 2 types of USB ports, Type C and Type A. Storage-wise, expect to boot with roughly 400 litres of space in versions with the all-wheel drive system, or 466 litres in cars with only front-wheel drive. There is no front trunk though, unfortunately, a consequence of that long wheelbase. Up front, you've got loads of space to play with as well. I'm actually quite impressed by the fact that there's no transmission tunnel, so you get loads of room up front as well. You can actually drive this car with one of your legs in the passenger compartment, if that's what you like to do. The most impressive thing about the front though is the fact that you've got a motorized center compartment. If you press a button on it, it actually moves forward by quite a long way, which frees up a little bit of room in the back, and then you can move it again all the way back. You can also assign a favorite position to your driver profile. So there are 2 profile buttons in the door. You hold one and it will save your preferences for your steering wheel position, your seat position, and for your armrest position. Why? It's a great question. It might be to help accommodate the optional fold-out tray/table, which can help you treat the Ariya as a kind of mobile office. This car doesn't happen to have that table, but what it does have is 2 glove boxes, one in the center, really cool, and one in the traditional position. That just makes so much sense, doesn't it? Most cars just have a single glove box and it's barely big enough to hold anything, even gloves, but having 2 just gives you a little bit of extra room. As for the dashboard itself, well, quite minimalist. I love the fact it's got this horizontal copper line all the way across. Really nice, really kind of contemporary. The only buttons you have are the power button and an on button, which is integrated into the volume knob. There's a volume knob, thank goodness, and it's a really good one. Below that, on this wooden section of the dashboard, are a set of capacitive buttons. Now, these vibrate when you press them to confirm that you've actually pressed each one, and they control things like the fan speed and temperature, obviously. Right, let's talk infotainment. You have a pair of 12.3-inch displays, one of which is usually dedicated to all your driving information, such as your speed and navigation, etc., and the second for all your infotainment purposes. However, they have a special trick. If you happen to want to move some of this information on the right-hand screen onto your left-hand screen, you can do that by swiping across. The car also comes with a head-up display, a proper head-up display, not one of these plastic reflective thingies that manufacturers often fob you off with. So this thing just feels incredibly premium. It kind of reminds me of the Mercedes-Benz MBUX system. So Nissan, that kind of feels like a Merc. What's it going to be like to drive? Don't know yet, but I hear good things from Nissan. They've benchmarked this car against some pretty stiff petrol-powered all-wheel drive competition in the snow in Japan, and they're raving about how good this thing is to drive. As I said, the top version will make 600 Newton meters of torque and do 0 to 62 in 5.1 seconds. But even the slowest model is still 90s hot hatch quick. That'll do 0 to 62 in around 7.6. While we're on the topic of driving, this is worth pointing out. The drive selector switch moves backwards and forwards and beeps at you in a pretty cool way. Then you just press P when you're in park. And actually you can change your drive mode by using what feels like a physical button, even though it looks like it's capacitive. And it's got the option for the E pedal, which allows you to drive it with just one pedal. You accelerate and then lift off that pedal and the car will brake automatically. If you don't want to drive yourself, then the car does have self-driving capabilities thanks to the Nissan ProPilot system, which allows it to scan the road ahead with cameras and sensors and drive within its own lane, accelerate, brake and corner all by itself. Pretty cool. As for range, well, Nissan effectively make 5 different versions of the Ariya, which include 2-wheel drive and all-wheel drive versions, and both of those have a choice of battery packs, either 63 kWh or 83 kWh. The 2-wheel drive 87 kWh cars have the longest range, up to 310 miles or 500 kilometers, while the top spec 87 kWh performance model is the fastest. Lots of choice here, with the idea being that there should be an Ariya for pretty much everyone. So that was the Nissan Ariya. Very interesting car, and it's one that I definitely can't wait to see on the road because it's enormously promising. We don't know how much it will cost exactly just yet, but given the fact that rivals like the Ford Mustang Mach-e are going to sell for around the £40,000 mark, I don't expect this to be too far away from that. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know. And as always, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.